Golf or something.
That's okay, inside of the house, yeah, he's coming up down here to the breeze.
Oh, for the, to my boy Q. You're gonna be great.
Didn't know where I was, so I said, I was in the backyard, doing yard work, pulling, leaves and the trash can full. Oh, which means he needs to go dump it. Yeah, he, for the most part, so, yeah. In fact, when he does come in, I'm busy. Real short, little intro, like, introduce you, and then.
Figure out how to work this thing, so I have it this time.
You got it this time?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you had before, but I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, well, I guess it wasn't turned on last time, and I didn't think about that. And so I was like, trying to, it's like, should I keep
Well, they put it over here, so, and that's ours, so they should have had it.
Oh, yeah, no, they had it, it just, user error.
Yeah, I may not even use a mic since there's only 4 people right now.
Yeah, one of them's my intern.
Well, she's in the seat, so I count her. I may use it. Good afternoon, and welcome to the library today. My name is Kathy Stevens, and I'm with the Reference Department. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that we have several flyers on the back table with information about the library and upcoming programs. We also have a questionnaire that, if you would take a moment to fill out, does help us in future programming. I'd like to introduce to you today Elizabeth Berner from the Washington County Extension Office at the University of Arkansas. This presentation will help you learn to recognize scams through an interactive presentation. Let's welcome Elizabeth.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk a little bit about consumer protection. And I think that's always been an important thing, but more and more recently just because of the technologies that we have. And I've also just been seeing a lot more of this mentioned on social media and Facebook, especially when we're looking at like the Washington County Sheriff's Office. I feel like every summer they're sharing a new scam alert of somebody impersonating an officer, saying something. So just kind of looking at those, because I feel like a lot of the time we know what a scam sounds like, and we think, oh, yep, I know, I can recognize it, but they're getting so much better. And I've even noticed that myself, even with my work, because our IT likes to send us these little sneaky emails, and so you have to watch it, and you have to read it, and then you have to report it as junk, because if you don't, then you have to go through training. Nobody wants to go through the training. But they've gotten really, really good. So today I just want to talk a little bit there you go, about what scams are. Just look at a few common scams and just give just kind of a general description of specific types. Talk a bit about some steps to protect your money. And then I do have some scenarios, just because if you're like me, seeing it in practice kind of makes it a little bit clearer, and it kind of helps connect some of those points. And then just a little wrap up if you have any questions at the end. And then for those in person, I do have an evaluation as well. So what are scams? So basically it is any means that someone uses to part you with your money, personal information, or data. There's a lot of different ways they can do this. They can do it through the phone. I know I have a new phone number and I'm just getting a million calls every day that say spam risk. Sometimes they're not labeled as such, but it's because it's gone through that system that has flagged it. It can also be through email. That actually happened with a coworker of mine the other day, and I'll talk about that a bit more later. Facebook, especially right now, with sadly a lot of the disasters that have happened recently, and we all want to help, just making sure that we know who we're sending that help through, that it is a trusted source, just because unfortunately some people do like to take advantage of very sad and unfortunate circumstances, and also websites, just because people do tend to spoof websites that we do know. They may be big brand name or government websites, but there's a slight change to that web address, and it takes you to somewhere that's not actually the legitimate source. And it's important to know that anybody can be affected by a scam at any time.
Turn on your microphone.
Oh, did I not turn it? Let's see. Okay, is that better? Yay! Okay.
That's terrifying. I would say that.
So then I just want to look at a few common scams too. And I'm just going to touch on them on this slide and we'll go into them a little bit more. But a common component of scams is pressure. So a scammer is going to try to get you to act immediately. They're going to try to do whatever they can to put you in a kind of stressed state, just because they don't want you to think about where you're sending your money. They don't want you to think about what you're doing. They want you to move quickly so you don't notice some of those little red flags that would help you identify that it's a scam. So that's going to be a common thing. And I'll point out a few different ways in some of those scenarios that we'll go through of ways that you know that is pressure that they've applied. So one of the big ones is government impersonator scams, and so that includes, like I had mentioned, a Washington County Sheriff's Office. At least once a year, I feel like it's been happening more and more. I end up seeing a post on my Facebook that says, hey, we just want to let you know there is somebody who is impersonating such and such officer, or saying that there's such and such officer, and we don't actually have someone named so-and-so that works here. So don't let them tell you that you have warrants out. Don't let them push you to where you're going to be paying money that you don't need to be paying. And so that's a common one. It also happens a lot with the IRS. And so just knowing what those processes look like when those organizations are actually contacting you. So that way you're not thinking that is the situation when it's not actually happening. And then also fake prizes, sweepstakes, and lottery scams. I feel like I've seen that a lot too with people that I follow on Facebook that they may be like a YouTuber or just like a personality really. And sometimes they do have those prizes and sweepstakes and they'll have you enter. But then you'll have those bots and scammers that are in the comments saying, you won, follow this link and all this stuff. So knowing if you have actually entered one of those, so you don't fall for a fake one, especially with the lottery. If somebody tells you you won the lottery, you know you didn't buy a lottery ticket, then you know that's for sure a scam. They'll also typically ask you to pay money, and you shouldn't be having to pay money to get something because that's just not how those are formatted. Yeah, definitely. Or they'll ask you for your account information. Most of the time that's going to be paid through a check or cash. They're not going to, they don't need your account information to do that. Or even like with prizes and sweepstakes, those are typically an actual physical item. So you shouldn't be having to pay for that. And then computer tech support scams. And so typically with that, you're going to have somebody call you and say, hey, there's an issue with your computer. I can fix it for you, no problem. You just need to pay me like $50 or $100. give me your account information, we can fix it. Well, you know you haven't had computer problems, or really, I think most importantly, you know you haven't contacted someone for that. Then you know that that's likely going to be one of those computer tech support scams. And then also the grandparent and family emergency scam. Typically, what this one is classified as when a caller pretends to be a grandchild or other relative in distress. But there are other versions of that as well, and I'll talk about that in just a minute too. So with the government impersonation scams, it's typically going to happen over a phone call, email, text, or social media message. None of those are ways that those organizations will contact you legitimately. Most of the time, they are either going to contact you in person or through registered mail. And so a lot of the time when a scammer calls, they'll say that they work for the FTC or the Federal Trade Commission, Social Security Administration, the Internal Revenue Service, or Medicare. And I will say that every single one of those organizations are fantastic resources. They have free pamphlets, they have frequently asked questions. So if you ever get a call or have a question about something you've received, they are fantastic about those questions being answered on their website. They have just loads of resources to help walk through that. And I think that's an important thing is when you receive any of these calls, whether it's someone saying that they're from a government agency, it's okay to hang up, walk away, do some research, look into that just to make sure that that is legitimate. And I've also seen too with various scams that they tend to pop up if you're able to look it up on Google and you just type in what that is, it'll pop up and you can see where that has happened over a lot of different areas. The Federal Trade Commission is also great because they have a list of current scams that have been happening. So if you receive something, that's also a good webpage to look at just because they're all over the country. They even have a map with that shows you where that specific occurrence has been or how that's spread out across the country. And then also just knowing that they're never going to threaten to arrest you, promise you a prize, or demand money be paid immediately. If it's one of these listed agencies here, they're not going to do that because there's a process. So not letting the pressure get to you, because again, that's a common scammer tactic that they want you to think with, like, actually, to act without thinking rather than thinking before you're acting. And so just allowing yourself to breathe, look into things, look into other research, because if it's legitimate, then that's something that's normal and accepted. And I would also say too, with all of these different scenarios I'm talking about, it's a good idea to step away from the source that has been sent to you. So if they called you on the phone, emailed you, reach out through their actual website or contact information and say, hey, I received a message from this person saying that they worked for you with this situation. Is this legitimate? So contacting them through those outside sources is always a good idea as well. And so if the IRS, if you do actually owe taxes to them, they typically are going to tell you to make payments to the United States Treasury. That's really the only way that you're going to be sending in. You're not going to be giving them gift cards. You're not going to be paying them through PayPal. It's through that secure website. And it sounds crazy, but scammers have done things like that before where they do say, hey, pay this PayPal account, and that's how you pay for it. They do actually have specific guidelines, and it is on their website under irs.gov/payments. So again, if you're not sure, they do have that listed out. They have a lot of fantastic resources on that page just to answer those common questions. And if the IRS representative does visit you, they are going to have those two forms of identification, which is the Pocket Commission and then the HSPD 12 card, which is a government standard of identification. So then with the grandparent and family emergency scam, and there are, like I said, there are different variations on this, and I'll talk about one. But typically what they consider with that is it's where a grandparent receives a phone call from someone posing as a grandchild or friend of a grandchild saying they are in dire need of money. And so one example that I saw preparing for this was, "Hey Grandpa, this is Charlie. I'm in Mexico and I've had a car accident. They've got me in jail, and the only way I can get out is if you go to Kroger and buy $500 worth of gift cards and mail them." Well, normally, I mean, we all would probably think, well, why are you sending them gift cards? That's not how you do it. But they try to play on your emotions and your fear, and they try to pressure you. And so that's typically how you see things like that happen. Another example actually happened with someone that I know where she received an email from someone she thought was her sister. And it said, "Hey, can you buy $300 worth of Apple gift cards for me? I just can't make it to the store. Can you just pick them up and then I'll get them from you later?" So she goes, buys them from the store, gets the $300 worth of Apple gift cards. She emails her back, says, "Hey, yep, I got them." Well, then the person she thinks is her sister says, "Well, can you just send me the numbers for the gift cards?" And so she goes to send that. And then the person she thinks is her sister says, "Can you send me the PIN number? Because it's not, I need that too." And that's when she thought, wait a second, why am I sending all of this stuff? I have the cards. I know she's close by. Like this doesn't seem legitimate. So she ended up calling her sister, and she found out that was not her sister. And so the sad thing is, on some of those gift cards, they're not refundable. And if it's something specific like Apple, you have to buy something that's an Apple product. It's not money that you can spend on other things typically. So just kind of watching for that, because yeah, like the stereotypical like family emergency grandparent scam is that it's a grandchild in trouble, but it could just be somebody that you think is a family member or friend, but it's not. And so just watching for that, especially because there's voice spoofing technology. We were actually talking about this before the program today too, of visual spoofing as well, where technology has gotten where people can switch out faces. And so you think you may be talking to the person that you think you know, but they're not that person. So just kind of having that extra level of care, just especially with those advances in technology. And then just a few tips to avoid being scammed. And so really just protecting your personal information, especially that's your social security number. And really the best way to do that is to not take it out of your safe space unless absolutely necessary. An example I would have in mind is with the Real ID. You have to have so many forms of identification, and so you do physically need that present. So that would be a time, but most instances where you have that, just knowing your number is fine. And you really don't want to accidentally lose that, because that is your identity. And so making sure that if somebody does ask you for your social security number, that you're asking why it's needed, how it's going to be used, and what's going to happen if you refuse to provide the number. And so one thing that has actually happened with me before, when I was 18, I was applying for a credit card. I'd never done this before. So I'd called the credit card company. We were going through the process, and he asked me for my social security number. Well, for my entire 18 years of living, I'd been told, don't give anybody your social security number. You've got to keep that safe. And so thankfully my dad was there with me when we were going through the process, because again, 18-year-old me never filled out a credit card application before. And he said, you've called them, so you know who you're talking to. You know, you've gone through the legitimate website, you've done all of this, so that's fine. But just knowing like what that's going to be used for, who you're talking to when you give it to them, just little things like that. And then also just keeping your credit card numbers and debit card numbers safe. And also just knowing how many you have.
because and having a list of those numbers and maybe even the contact for the banks, just in case you do lose them. Whenever I was in college, there was actually a whole string of car break-ins, and so some people that I was classmates with, they had left their wallets in their cars, and they had their credit cards and their debit cards in there, and those got stolen, and they couldn't remember what all they had in there. So just having that list, keeping that in your safe space can help, even if nobody steals it or is trying to scam you. It's just a good thing to have, just in case it gets lost or something. You can cancel it easily and not have that worry and stress. And also just keeping your PIN numbers and passwords safe. With passwords, I feel like it's getting harder because almost every website asks you for a password. I don't have that much of an imagination to come up with a new password for every single website, but just trying to keep it difficult enough for someone else to guess, or even a software to go in and try to guess what your password is, but something that's clear enough for you to remember. And also just making sure that your computer software and hardware is updated. Just because the older software it becomes easier for people to hack into, just because it doesn't have as secure of malware and things like that. And then also with strong security questions and answers. And I would say just kind of keep some of that information close to the vest. This is a fictional thing, but there's a movie called Now You See Me. And there's a billionaire character. He's been financing these magicians. So they're trying to steal his bank account information. And so they are sitting there. They're asking him these random questions like, oh, yeah, I bet you had a dog. And he was named something like super just scary. And he's like, oh, no, I had a cat named Fluffy. Oh, yeah, like I think you had an uncle on your mother's side. Well, those questions are, what was the name of your childhood pet? What was your mother's maiden name?
Oh, yeah.
And so just knowing who you're talking to and sharing that information with, and even on social media, because sometimes it's so easy just to put that stuff out there, but thinking about how somebody could use that, or even just like posting when you're going on vacation or when you're going to be out of town. That goes outside of just general scams, but somebody could track your information. They know when you're going to be out of town. Anymore with voter registration and a Google Maps thing, they can find out where you live and potentially break in. So just thinking about that information, not living in fear, but just thinking smart about some of those things. And then also with our devices, making sure that you potentially have two-step authentication. So with my work, we use Microsoft. So every time I log in, I have to have my phone. I have to say that, yep, it's me. Or you may have like a text message where it's got that 5-digit code, but that just has that extra level of protection. And then also Google and Apple are good about login alerts, and they'll tell you where someone is logging into your account. Or even Netflix. I actually had somebody in Europe one time that had logged into my Netflix. I've never been to Europe. So just keeping track of those accounts, and that can help you compartmentalize that and potentially keep somebody from stealing your information. And then also just, again, knowing who you're working with. You want to make sure that you're purchasing from somebody who is reputable, it's a legitimate business. I think with shops being online, and that's definitely been a great thing, and we can access a lot more than we used to, it just requires, again, that extra level of care, just verifying that, yes, it is a secure website I'm paying through. I do know who I'm getting this from. And also just with your documents, making sure that if it does have that sensitive information like your social security number or your address, just making sure it's shredded, just so that way, one, it just keeps your personal information safe, but it also does kind of make it harder for people to get that information and potentially take your identity as well. And then also just being aware of deals requiring money up front. I know I've seen this on Facebook before where somebody has required money for people to go see a place that they're wanting to rent. And we all know kind of how that housing market, it's kind of in an interesting place right now, and so people are really trying to find places to live, and people are taking advantage of that. And they'll say, oh, well, you need to pay $100, $500 down before you can see this place because I've got 10 or 15 other people that want to see it. Well, there isn't actually a place to rent. And so as soon as somebody's paid that money, it's gone. And so unfortunately, like things like this do happen, and it's not necessarily something to kind of live in fear about. It's just having awareness, and again, just taking that extra step just to research and look into things before jumping into it. And that's just part of being a good consumer, is just knowing what you're looking at. So I do have a few scenarios just to kind of put this into kind of perspective and just into action here. And actually, some of these are ones that I have actually received when I was getting ready for this, so they are real. So on this one, it is from a 63912704938 number. And it says, U.S. Post, you have a USPS parcel being cleared due to the detection of an invalid zip code address. The parcel cannot be cleared. The parcel is temporarily detained. Please confirm the zip code address information in the link within 24 hours. So they do have that link, and it's just an HTTPS trackinginfo.top/US. It tells me to please reply with a Y, then exit the text message and open it again to activate the link, or copy the link into your Safari browser and open it. And then it tells me to have a great day from the USPS team, which is very thoughtful and sweet of them. So just looking at that, like, how would you know that that's a scam?
First of all, did you have something expected or something in the mail or something?
No, I mean, I do order from Amazon a lot, but no, at that time I was not.
Because the tracking, I think the thing you can tell it's not USA, whatever. I mean, I could tell that it's, if I would read that, I would say else it's a scam. I don't know. It's just when the HP with tracking, I don't know. I will say it's a scam.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely not a legitimate tracking email at all, or tracking link. And so another thing too on that is, and on this one I actually have some of these spots, but that number is actually not a U.S. number. It's from the Philippines.
Yeah.
I had to look that one up, and I was looking through this one because I was like, I think I might use that for this presentation. And so I was looking through it. And with the U.S., our number is a +1. So that's a +63.
That's
Well,
right.
if it's the United States Postal Service, I don't think they're going to be contacting me from the Philippines. So that's a pretty good giveaway there. We also have some strange spacing, grammatic errors, and so that's one of the first things they will tell you if you look up, how do I know that this is phishing or smishing or scam, is looking at some of that. But I will tell you, they have gotten really good, and I think it's because there's so many spell check and grammar things that are out there now. So that's not always as reliable, but on this one, it very much was. And then, yeah, like you said, that address is not a USPS site, and the address is not spelled out, so there's some misspellings in that too. And then it's asking me to reply to the message, so that tells them that, yep, we found somebody who thinks this is legitimate, they want that tracking information, and then they want me to go outside of the text message, and that's probably because they're going to send me another message, it's going to bump that one up, and it'll have an active link, and then they're wanting me to copy that into my browser. And that could take me to some website where someone could download a file to my computer, or it just is a connection. And so just kind of watching that a little bit. And then also, USPS is going to refer to themselves as either the United States Postal Service or as USPS. And that top part, they refer to themselves as the US Post. If you go onto their website, they're never, ever, ever going to refer to themselves as just US Post. And then also, that asking you to reply, that's a very common scammer tactic. I'm sure eventually that's probably going to get adjusted as they try to get more people to interact with those things, but right now that's very much a common tactic. And so basically, make sure that you're not responding to the text messages, you're not following their instructions, you're not copying those links into your web browser. because they can contain those viruses that can allow them to access your devices and your accounts. Basically, just report it as junk, delete it. You can also report it to spam@uspis.gov or forward the text to 7726. And so that's basically the United States Postal Investigative Service. So that is legitimate. That is actually from their website. And so basically, this is a form of a government impersonation scam. And so the USPS actually knows about this. They refer to it as phishing or smishing, which is basically a form of phishing that involves a text message or phone number. Sorry, my allergies have been getting to me, so that's making things very fun. They'll also use 5-digit short codes to send and receive text messages from mobile numbers. So again, we had that full length number there. It's usually going to be a secure 5-digit number. And if you have anything that you are expecting and it is being shipped through USPS, you're usually going to have that tracking number. You'll go directly to their website. They have that tracking area where you can just put in that number. They're not going to send you a funky link. And they definitely won't be sending you updates unless you initiate that on their website. And that's usually a drop-down tab where it'll say, do you want updates, email and text for this thing? And then also, I would say on this one, the zip code is not going to cause it to be held, usually, as long as the rest of the address is correct. It does help with further identification if, say, it's a street address, because there are a lot of copied addresses in different cities, different states. But yeah, the zip code should not be holding that up either. So on this one, this was an email or a text. I think I got this from one of the government websites about this, but it says, hello, this is an apology from your electric utility. You go overcharged by your third-party supplier. You will be receiving a rebate check along with a 30% discount on your electric and gas bill. Please click this link to get your refund, and it's got a bit.ly link. So looking at that, what would tell you that was a scam?
There's bad grammar in there.
Oh yeah.
And the bid.
Yeah, definitely. So they didn't use spell check on that one, and that's kind of easy. Like, you just put it in Microsoft Word and it'll tell you. But yeah, there's definitely that. It's also, they're missing a dash between third party, and then that bit.ly link. So that, I mean, a lot of legitimate businesses do use bit.ly links because it's easier than having that really, really long web address. But the downside is it doesn't show you where it's sending you, so you can accidentally get into a bad website very easily. It's also really vague, so it says your electric utility. Well, it doesn't say Ozark Go, it doesn't say SWEPCO, it doesn't say Carroll Electric. So how do I know it's actually my electric utility? And then usually they're the supplier. It's not a third party that's doing it. It's usually that company that's actually working with you on that power. And then I also found it interesting when I was going over it today that it had mentioned electric and gas. At least here in Northwest Arkansas, I can't think of any company that does both. Now, I know Oklahoma, they do have OG&E, and so they do both. But if you know that your company doesn't, then that would be a clear giveaway too. And then usually if you have, if you were actually overcharged, they would just credit that back to future bills. They're not going to cut you a check and say, here you go. They're just going to keep that money in their system and they'll just credit you back. No, unfortunately, they probably won't. And then usually they're going to correspond with you through the mail. I mean, you might be able to set it up online. I know Ozark Electric, you can typically pay your bills online, and you might have a paperless way that you contact each other. But typically that's going to be through the mail. So this would be a fake refund scam. Basically, again, don't click or copy the link because you don't know where it's going to go. And then report that message as junk and delete it. So this one is from someone who got an email, and it says, hello, the purpose of this email is to inform you that your taxes have not been paid, account number R345678. Please submit immediate payment to this PayPal address, IRS Gov Pay 1, to avoid legal action. Payment amount should total $2,500. If payment is not submitted by end of day today, IRS will be forced to submit your debt amount to prosecution. Oh, and I would also point out the email address is administrator@irs.gov.us.
.us,
Definitely, yeah.
and they'll send you a letter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the actual website is irs.gov. And so sometimes it's those little itty bitty things in it that if you didn't look at it super close, it might look like it's the actual website, but it's not. And then they're also requesting that payment to, again, be made through PayPal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you should be actually paying through the United States Treasury. PayPal, that tends to be a favorite one, and I think it's because it's hard for you to get your money back once you've spent it there. I think they've slowly started to try to build some protections in for that, but even sometimes with bank accounts, like once that money's gone, it's unfortunately gone. There's also a lot of pressure language in there, so they're saying legal action, they're saying end of day today, submit your debt amount to prosecution. But if it's legitimate, they're not going to be saying it like that. That's not how that process is going to go. Usually you do have a bit of a grace period to pay that back. They'll also, IRS and other government agencies are never going to call, email, or text, or even message you on social media to ask for that. Like you said, typically a letter. If it did escalate, then they might visit you in person, but mail is going to be the primary method there. And then also, when you are preparing your taxes, whether that's in person with an accountant or if you're using a system like TurboTax or one of those that's online, and you know how much that was, because I mean you should have your statement at the end of the year of what your taxes were, what you're submitting. If you know you weren't spending $2,500 in taxes this year, then that would be an immediate red flag to me too, because it's like, well, I know I didn't owe that much. I've never owed that much, so why would they be asking me to pay that? And then also just watching those account numbers, because that's just a very generic account number that somebody just put in there to send out. So again, same thing, just not paying to that PayPal address. Don't provide financial or personal information. Delete the message. And it might also be good to just forward that to IRS, because again, they do have a contact link. FTC has a link to submit common scams to, and that just kind of helps track where those are happening and occurring. So basically, just to kind of wrap all of this up, you really just want to protect your personal information. That's your PINs, credit card numbers, social security, debit cards, and even just your devices. When you're in doubt, don't be afraid to search it out, look into things, ask people. If it's somebody that you know that you think is contacting you, definitely pick up the phone, call them. It may seem like you're bothering them, but it's easier to do that in a moment than potentially have issues later where you could lose quite a bit of money and have a lot of hassle with that. So just making sure that you are reaching out to that individual business or government organization, and don't allow scammers to pressure you in the moment. It's definitely okay to hang up, take a step back.
Hang up.
Yep.
I'll verify with the company, hang up, and I'll make sure if it's legit.
Definitely.
Yep.
So any questions?
I have a question. Can I show you this real quick?
Yeah.
I've been applying on Indeed, and they didn't verify what job position I applied for, so I was like, this is kind of, and I heard that Indeed has been having some scams, so I Googled the number, the area code, and it said it was a scam. Because I've been applying, but they didn't specify the job that I applied for. See what I'm saying? It didn't specify, and they say, you read it?
Yeah, and it looks like it was a call from Texas too. Have you applied for a job that?
No, yeah, and it was weird, and I was like, there's something about that. So I Googled and it says it was a scam. But see, even in Indeed, when you apply for a job, they send you this with your stuff. Oh my God.
Yeah, I think that one's probably definitely a scam just from what I've seen on that. And I've seen that some with LinkedIn. I actually had somebody message me the other day and said, "Hello, are you in?" I'm like, well, I'm not in LinkedIn. Like, I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not in LinkedIn. That we have this job offer for you and all these things.
Hearing that.
So unfortunately, like, there's a lot of really great resources and legitimate sites, but people do unfortunately take advantage of those sometimes.
I have a whole list of questions.
Oh, go for it.
See how many people are here. So when it's a drop down and your computer offers to save your password for that website that you're on, should we do that, not do that?
So typically, they do tend to be fairly secure, and I have noticed with, I'm just mentioning this one because it's the one I use, Google Chrome does that a lot, and they actually will give me notifications sometimes when that information has been shared across other websites, and they're like, hey, like, just so you know. I feel like with Internet Explorer, I wouldn't do that, just because I feel like that one's a little bit less secure. So at this time, it's technically secure. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea just to have it notated somewhere. But unfortunately, I do that myself, so.
I just made a doctor's appointment this morning and they wanted my social security number. Why does medical want your social security number?
I would assume that it's probably just so they can track your medical records and see where you've had other appointments and just keep that medical history together. Just because.
Do I have to give it to them?
That would be one where I would ask them.
That would be when I would call the doctor's office.
Well, I called the doctor's office. I initiated the call, but it's like, I don't know what assistant didn't just write down my name and number and birthday.
Or you can just tell them you'll give it to them when you come in.
I don't want to give it to them at all.
You know what, I work in the medical field and they require that, but it always to me feels like an invasion of your privacy, giving your social security, because giving your social, and I used to see it sometimes, well, not me, but the receptionist, but I always thought about you. It's invasive to me, even to give my social security. I have a pending dentist appointment and they ask, and I'm like, I don't know, I feel, yeah, but they require that. And like you said, I think that's what she said, to keep records of your medical records and all that, so they know it's the right person. But I feel like her invasive, too much information out there. And all these medical ransom, have you heard of the ransom thing, that everybody gets all this personal information in medical hospitals and all that? Have you heard that? Ransomware, that they want money because they got all this patient's information. I got a couple of letters from my daughter's dentist office, and then that they got all their information ransomware, and they got all my information and their social security and all that, and it happens. It's scary out there, like you said. Scary world,
Yeah,
but
it's
that's what we live
everywhere.
in.
I mean, you know, if you apply for a loan or,
That's the world that we live in, unfortunately. That's
okay, at the bottom, when it says report junk, which I click on those, where does that go? And does it really have an effect?
So it does.
It does?
on what? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I
So
just
it,
wonder who's
that
looking at that.
basically flags it in your email provider's system. So that way they know that that sender is not an approved sender, and they typically will go through and review those. I know with Outlook, just because that's what we use, it'll actually hold emails sometimes if it's not sure, and then it'll have us review it. We can choose to release it or not. But yes, it does actually ping it in their system.
About that. Do you have a favorite software security package? Does anybody have one they like? Norton, McAfee.
I'm going to be honest, I haven't personally used one, and with my job I'm not allowed to specifically recommend one, but I know people have had good experiences with a lot of those.
Yeah, mine
especially
pops
if
up all the time. I'm in, correct. You get those?
I kind of have a question for you, since you work for the library, right?
Okay.
When I come in, I see a lot of people, they get into the website, and I always wonder how safe is that, when, because I'm afraid to bring my laptop and plug it into the Wi-Fi, because I heard that more Wi-Fi people are most easily to write, and so I always wondered about that. So that's why I always go to a computer that's plugged in, because I feel it's more secure that it's plugged in through the wires. I don't know why.
I think it's as safe as it can be,
Oh, it's like anything else.
just like anything else, right?
Okay. I always
I
was
mean,
wondering.
I have faith in our IT and our computer systems here. But anything is possible anywhere.
Because I feel safer using the computer that's plugged into the wires. I don't know why, because I heard that's even more secure than wireless Wi-Fi. I don't know. What do you think about that? Or is it about the same risk, like anything else?
On that one, I'm not sure because I don't have an IT background, so I'm not sure if either one is more secure than the other.
I was just wondering. That's fine.
I've seen those commercials where they say you have, all kinds of different subscriptions, and is it Rocket or something like that? And I would love to know what subscriptions I have out there, but I'm afraid that this company just takes information. I mean, how are they going to know what subscriptions I have without me telling them, here's my, social security number or the credit cards that I use?
Oh my, ooh,
Yeah.
that's scary.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's because we tend to use the same information when we sign up for things, whether that's our email or.
Yeah.
And I personally haven't used those systems, so I'm not 100% sure
Yeah,
how it plugs
yeah.
in. But it is surprising how all of that kind of connects and links in. But like I said, I've never used them before, so I don't know how their systems specifically work.
I'll do some more research because I'm sure we've got subscriptions that we're paying for that, we don't know what they are and we need to cancel them.
I think too, if you know that all of the credit cards and accounts that you have, just going through and looking at your expenses that you have would probably be good. That way you're not giving out information to people, and you can just look at where those charges are going through. But then, I mean, some of those systems, the softwares could be good too. But that's just kind of the old kind of analog style way of doing it, I suppose.
Credit card numbers.
Any other questions?
Well, I just saw this in the news not too long ago. It happened in a lady in Bentonville. She was carrying her purse with her credit cards, and apparently somebody with something, I don't know what the phone or something, they were able to scan all her credit card numbers. And it was on the news, and they said there's people that's been doing that. So you have to just get your credit card that you use the most. And then there's some wallets, apparently they help protect that information. So I was like, it was on the news, it was a local lady in Bentonville that she had to cancel her credit cards because somebody kind of scanned something through her purse and was able to get all her, credit card and all that. It was scary. It happened in Bentonville. So, like I said, this is the world that we live in.
Yeah, that's for sure one I'd have to look into, just because I may have to update this a little bit further. Because I don't think that one crossed my feed, so I'll have to look that one up.
And about updating, because I haven't updated my system, but you say it's good to update when it's time to update your phones and all that.
Yeah.
Secure, more
Yeah,
secure.
just keeping your software updated and things. So like with my work, we use Windows, and so we're updating to where we all have the most recent. Just because when you keep it updated, it keeps your software and it's easier to maintain. And it also just has support too. Just because some of those apps and softwares and things, they don't have the support anymore, just because they're moving into the updated ones. So it just kind of leaves a little bit of loose ends, I suppose. Any other questions, thoughts, anything? Well, thank you for being great audience members. I do, like I said, have that evaluation if you wouldn't mind filling out. It is different than the library one, so please definitely fill out theirs too. That one's just so that way I can see what you learned today, take that to show our impacts and things. I also work for the county extension office. So if you have any questions, definitely look us up, email us. I have a few different Facebook pages where we post different information. So yeah,
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Protection sharks. They don't quite a lot.